Hey there, Griff Hamlin here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome and thanks for joining me today. Today we're just going to do something fun. I've taken an intro that I heard to Sweet Home Chicago. This was played by a fellow named Luther Tucker. And I think it's a pretty close transcription to what he actually played, starting out from the tune. I modified some things a little bit, but it just it's a great example of using sort of little tiny chord shapes instead of scales to put together a really nice intro. It really sounds like a solo, but really it's just little pieces of chords plus some nice turnaround stuff, all right? So I played it on the way in. Let's break it down, and then we'll play it again a couple of times through nice and slow so you can join me. So the first note's just going to be an E. It's the 2nd fret on the 4th string. You could use the low E. You could use the high open E. Doesn't really matter. We just need an E to get us started. And then we're doing pretty much one of the most classic blues turnarounds ever. So I'm going to go up to the 4th fret on both the 3rd and the 1st string. And the way I play this is I use my pick for the notes on the 3rd string, and I use my middle finger of my right hand for the notes on the 1st string. You can pick them, or you can do like I do with the pick and the middle finger. Whatever works. It doesn't really matter how you choose to get the notes to come out, as long as you get the notes to come out. So I've got the 4th fret again on my 3rd and my 1st string, and I'm going to play them in a triplet group. 2 and then I'm just going to go down a fret, 3 and go down another fret, 4 and now the next thing that I need is the 1st fret on the 3rd string and the open 1st string. There's really no way to strum that without getting the open 2nd string, so you kind of don't have a lot of choice but to do that with your pick and your middle finger or 3rd finger, some sort of, you're going to need to separate out the pick and the finger. And I'm going to actually pluck both strings open and right away do that hammer onto the 1st fret. And then I'm going to walk up, open 1, 2 to get to my 5 chord, since I'm in the key of E. So this is all in E. And then I'm going to hit either a B7 chord, or just the B note even would be enough. But that's how we kind of get set up, right? And you can kind of hear that. It's a classic blues intro. Right? It's one of those things that we hear all the time. So again, you could start it with an open E or low E, or I chose the E in the middle. Later on, you're going to see it as the open E, or actually the 5th fret on the 2nd string. But that's to come. So the next part. So we're going to go to the 16th and the 15th frets. Now, if you were playing this on an acoustic, this might be quite a challenge, and you would have to change it to there, which is the 12th fret on the 2nd string and the 10th fret on the 1st string. But I have it as the 16th fret on the 3rd string and the 15th fret on the 2nd string. And that is the same as this little chord shape. If you don't know this little chord shape, this is an E7. And it's got its root at the 2nd fret of the 4th string. And then the rest of it looks like what you commonly think of as a D7. So if you take an open D7 chord and refinger it and slide it up, you have E7. So I've got 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, 3rd finger on the 4th fret of the 3rd string, middle finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, pinky on the 4th fret of the 1st string. F7, F sharp 7, G7, it's movable. We can put it wherever we want. If I get it all the way up to here, and I pull out just those middle 2 strings, there's my riff. And then, so what I'm going to do, so I've got those 2 notes, 1 and 2 and put the third finger down, 3 and that's on the 17th fret. Let go of the third finger again, and I'm back to the 15th fret on the second string. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then we're going to go down to the second, the 12th on the second string and the 13th on the third string, which you probably recognize right out of a E bar chord. So that's the 12 and 13 up to the 14th fret on both strings, back to the 12 and 13, back to the 14 on both. And that's a common move. Right, we go from sort of the E7 to A to back to so it's basically that same idea, but with only 2 strings. And then we repeat that much again, and then we do a really nice sort of chord scale. Okay, so we have the 13 on the third string, the 12 on the first string, and it's that same third string, first string, third string. Slide it down a whole step. Slide it down. The top note goes down a half step, the lower note goes down a whole step. So we have 13, 12, 11, 10, both 9s, both 7s. And I have another video where I explain how a major scale harmonizes to make these. I'll try and find that and leave it in the leave it somewhere near this video. But this is the 5 chord, 4 chord, 3 chord, 2 chord. This is just a really common riff though. But again, it's all chord based. Okay, and then that takes us through all of, I'll say, the 1 chord, right, the E. So if you can imagine that kind of groove going in the background, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Time for the A chord, right? So we think A7. If you can think about adding that pinky to the 8th fret of the second string, which is not an uncommon thing to do. So what we're going to do there is just play, again, the second and third string. So the middle finger is going to stay at the 6th fret of the third string. The top note is going to move down from the 8th fret on the second string to the 7th to the 5th. And then I'm just going to bounce back and forth between the second and third string. And we're going to do that 2 times because there's 2 bars of A chord. Then we're going to go back to, think about again, E7. In this case, a 5th string root bar chord E7. But we're, again, just going to play the second and third strings. So I have the 9th fret on the second string, the 7th fret on the third string, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and then I'm going to go down a half step for 4 and then back for 1 and down for 2 and back for 3 and then I'm going to go up to the 12th fret on the 2nd and the 4th strings. Okay, and you can, those 2 notes are out of, again, in E7. And he may be hitting that 3rd string. It's hard to hear, but it's easy to play if you just use, since you've already got, I use my middle finger and my 3rd finger because that makes it easier to mute out everything else. And then I'm going to go to the B7 chord, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with the A7 chord. So my middle finger's at the 8th fret of the 3rd string, pinky goes to the 10th fret on the 2nd, and then down to the 9th, and then down to the 7th. Then I find it easier to switch fingers now and grab that 7th fret with my 3rd finger, because then I'm going to sort of lead into the house pattern. And that's going to be the 6th fret on the 3rd string and the 5th fret on the 2nd string. Okay, so I do that, the B, 2, 3, 4, and then if you don't know the house pattern, it's in the key of E, the E at the 5th fret of the 2nd string, and the 7th fret also on that string, and the 5th and the 7th on the 1st string, and the 6th fret on the 3rd string. Now this pattern is no particular scale, and there's always a lot of confusion when the house pattern comes up, because a lot of people like to say, "Oh, it's the top of box 2 from the pentatonic scale," and it looks like it. If this was your root, if that 3rd finger note was your root, yes, this would be F sharp minor pentatonic. But it's not. This is our root. So therefore, this is no longer F sharp minor pentatonic. It is none of the above. It has no name. It's sometimes called the B.B. King box. I call it the house pattern. But as a root, a 6th, a 2nd, a 4th, and a 5th. There's no scale that has that. The only way the way that we make this work is by taking the 2nd and bending it up a half step to give us a minor 3rd, or a whole step to give us a major 3rd. And in this case, it's a minor 3rd. So I'm going to do the 7th fret and the 5th fret on the top string, grab the 7th fret on the 2nd string, bend it up a half step, release it, 5th fret, down to the 6th. And play that twice. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. And now we're going to basically repeat how we started. And either the B note or the B chord, whatever you feel comfortable with. All right, so that's the whole thing all the way through. Now, you might have to kind of go back and, work on some stuff. But let's do this. I'm going to play the whole thing nice and slow. Just count it, all the usual stuff that I do. I'm a real big proponent on counting. If you haven't heard me talk about it before, you're going to hear me talk about it more. So counting is key. So make sure that you do what I do. Play what I play, count, say what I say, follow along. It shouldn't be too hard to put this together. Let's give it a go. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and that's all there is to it. Piece of cake, right? So what I've done is I just played a blues in E into my looper. Nothing fancy, but it gives me something to play over. So you'll notice that because there is 2 bars up front, I'll say an intro. So what I've done is I just have myself keeping time on the looper. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I started my 12 bars. Just to give me something to play over. So there's no jam track, because I would probably use this, you know, maybe with a band, or I might even just be playing with a friend. You know, maybe just somebody else is going to hold down this. Okay, if you're playing by yourself and you have a looper, this would be kind of fun to put this all together for yourself. So again, just 2 bars of time so that you can play the intro, and then just give yourself a 12-bar blues in E, and you can be fine. All right, so let's play it along with my my looper here. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you have it. I hope you have some fun with that and can play around with it. And of course, if you like this video, feel free to share it with friends. And I look forward to talking to you real soon. Take care.